So if you're tired of the usual insanity because it is Super Tuesday and the only thing American media is going to talk about is the primaries, the primaries, the primaries. I already voted. I hope you guys go out and vote. Or if you can't vote, encourage someone else who can too. Because if you don't vote, who you get, you're going to have to deal with. So let's talk about some of our other places around the world that the American media ignores. In this case, we're going to talk about Turkey, Greece, and the EU. Now, as much as I like the stylish stuff. This article is from the Daily Mail in the UK. It says, Greek police fire tear gas and barricade the border with barbed wire as more than 75,000 migrants try to cross from Turkey into the EU. So, highlights, of course, EU Border Protection Agency Frontex said it was on high alert as at the Turkey-Greece border and Bulgaria border, Turkish President Erdogan, how do you say his name? Dictator, opened the doors to allow up to 4 million to leave the country. Previously, basically the EU had bribed Turkey to serve as a buffer between the Middle East and the European Union to keep out millions of illegal immigrants who claim to be refugees, right? Because, of course, as you ever know, every leftist is going to be like, the women and the children, right? So, Greek police closed border crossings and fired tear gas at groups of migrants who tried to enter the country. Pregnant women and children were amongst those making hazardous crossings from Turkey to Greece by sea. Of course they are. Why not? But you can see for yourself in the pictures they show you. All right, so a couple things. One, Turkey has been involved militarily in Syria. They've recently been exchanging fire with Syrian armed forces. They've been trading casualties with the Russians, although they don't really want to get into a direct Turkey on Russia conflict, but it could be unavoidable given their interests. So let's continue. Estimated 75,000 migrants have crossed from Turkey into the EU 3 days after the president of Turkey declared the border open. Greek police fired tear gas and erected barbed wire along their frontier in a desperate attempt to prevent chaos in what authorities termed illegal entry into their country. That is literally illegal entry. Like crossing the border without authorization is illegal. I know it's the EU and they don't really do national sovereignty, but it's still illegal entry. If nothing else, there should be some sort of European thing, right? But it's not. And the EU's border agency, Frontex, moved on a high alert footing, stationing corps along the 27-nation bloc's land border with Turkey and in the Greek islands. Of course, whether they're there to stop illegal immigration or facilitate it is anyone's guess. But the efforts proved futile as migrants waded across the Maritsa River in Greece and arrived by boat. On the Greek islands of Samos, Lesbos, and Chios. It is unclear whether the migrants have also entered Bulgaria. Bureaucrats in Brussels said tonight they will hold an emergency meeting in the coming days as fears played out across the continent. The scenes from the 2015 migrant crisis, where thousands of refugees streamed across the border to reach Germany, France, and Britain, could be repeated. Turkey, which has held back 4 million refugees following a $2.3 billion deal with the EU 4 years ago, opened the floodgates on Friday, a day after 34 Turkish troops were killed in a Syrian regime airstrike in Idlib. All right, so if you want to know where Idlib is, I'll pull up a picture. This is where Idlib is. All right, there's Turkey, there's Aleppo, Raqqa, right, the capital, I think it was, for ISIS at one point. Idlib is really the last area controlled by Syrian rebels. And of course, you can see Lebanon right there. And then down here is Israel. But there's Turkey. All right. Ankara ramped up tensions with the Assad regime tonight as it bombed airports outside Aleppo, deep inside Syrian government-held territory, and shot down 2 of President Bashar al-Assad's fighter jets. Tensions were also heightened with Moscow, which has backed the regime, as 3 Russian journalists were detained in Istanbul, Turkey's largest city. It is thought that Erdogan has told migrants the borders are open to force his European NATO allies and the EU to back Turkey's offensives in Syria and in response to alleged delays in paying the migrant package agreed in 2016. Of course, there are other things going on, right? Turkey is a NATO ally. NATO really doesn't have a stake per se in Syria, right? Trump pulled our forces out, or is in the process of reducing our presence there, and we're kind of trying to wash our hands of it. Turkey has requested our assistance, but do we really have a stake in it? Turkey got involved in Syria mainly because Kurds were fighting against Bashar al-Assad. Of course, there are Kurdish militant groups who have been waging a guerrilla war in southern Turkey for decades. And I say guerrilla, but you could also supplant terrorist in there. So it put the U.S. in a quandary, right? We had people who we had supported in Iraq, we had supported in Syria. We're also fighting a NATO ally who didn't always agree with us. And we basically had three sides, and not one of the sides really is that loyal to us, except for the Kurds. But the Kurds are conducting terrorist ops in a military and political allies country. So, what to do? But let's look at some of the pictures of these women and children. It says here, migrants pictured gathered on the buffer zone in Greece, Turkey border this morning. Erdogan said he had opened the doors following the killing of 34 Turkish troops in northern Syria to the Russian-backed regime. Now let's spot the women and children. I do not see any women and children. I do see a lot of military-aged males. Maybe there's one back there. I don't know. That looks fuzzy. That could be a female, right? And we got, here's a boat. Group of migrants from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Palestine. Really? Iraq? Afghanistan? Palestine? Well, let's check it out. There's Iraq. Here's I don't know. Palestine's kind of bordering Egypt and Jordan, to a lesser extent Syria. Yeah, I'm not really sure if and of course Afghanistan's way over here, but you're going to see them later. But these are all people who are claiming to be refugees, who have passed through one or more countries and stayed there for years on their way to the European Union. Because apparently, despite charity being one of the pillars of Islam, Turkey has not sought any or made any effort to turn a refugee into a resident or a citizen. Apparently that's Europe's problem. And here's some. Oh, there's a female. There's some kids. Migrants pictured in a makeshift tent, wait at the buffer zone. There's some kids. A lot of men. Hard to tell. There's some police. And the women are not there. Hundreds of migrants walk. That guy's on his cell phone. Of course, the video is all women and children. Then you see that guy. Oh, look, he's talking on my cell phone. I wonder what country he's from. Turkish Minister of the Interior, Süleyman Soylu, if I butcher your name, I'm sorry, tweeted that the number of migrants crossing into the EU had reached 76,000 this morning. However, Greek authorities disputed this figure and said they successfully repelled almost 10,000. Still a lot. Refugees were pictured attempting to swim across the river to reach Greece this morning. 6 migrants were also photographed 4 miles inside the Balkan nation state after they'd been arrested by police. I wonder if that's that catch and release policy that we used to have and we're trying to get rid of. All right, let's keep going to the pictures. Migrants head towards EU border between Greece and Turkey. Tell me if anyone would like to see that coming into their country. And if you look at the people, you might notice there aren't a lot of little people around. It's not a lot of little kids. It's just not. Migrants crossing from Pazarkul on the border of Greece have clashed with riot police. Tear gas was fired into crowds including Syrians, Iranians, Iraqis, Pakistanis, and Moroccans. Here's Morocco. Here's Greece. You can't even see Pakistan, but it's right there. Iranians, Iraqis, Pakistanis, and Moroccans. What are the Iranians refugees from? What are the Moroccans refugees from? Greek security forces intervention in irregular migrants at the border. Irregular migrants? You mean illegal aliens? Imagine this. It looks like a zombie apocalypse. That's insane. But this is kind of how our southern border looks some of the time, right? Turkey shows smoke rising from gas canisters launched by Greek security forces following their intervention in irregular migrants at the border between Turkey and Greece. Yeah, that looks like a woman and child, clearly. Although he does look sunburned. Oof. Migrants are seen attempting to cross the Merik River to walk toward Turkey's Pazarkul border crossing. They appear to be using sticks to help their balance. Yes, that's great. Thanks. Again, migrants are seen climbing aboard a dinghy boat to enter Greece. As many as 7 migrants are pictured in the boat, with many more watching from the riverbank. With the exception of... Oh, that's not even a person. That's his hand. Well, do you see any women and children in that? Nope. 1, 2, 2. Yep, 7 military-aged males. The locals are trying to tell them to go away. We don't want you. Which is fairly rude and, of course, inconsiderate. Of course, it's also rude and inconsiderate to invade another country by the thousands and then complain and demand that their culture and country accommodate you and give you things because your country sucks. And to all those military-aged males, like these guys and those guys, fix your country. Migrants are seen using a barge-like canal boat to cross the Evros River stretch and enter Greece. They are wearing thick coats to protect themselves from Europe's winter weather. Where'd they get the coats if they're not from there? Here's a lot of women and children. Migrants brandish their fists as they come up against barbed wire at the Turkey-Greece border today. I mean, that guy's having a good time, so he might be okay. But then again, he doesn't look like he's that refugee-like, does he? Clean, freshly cut hair, not that down and out. Although he's using a cane for something, I'm assuming that's his, although he doesn't seem to be standing with too much difficulty, and he doesn't look like he's putting a lot of weight on that. But whatever. But these guys, do they really look like the kind of peaceful people who are like, hey, we just want a helping hand? No, they look pretty angry, like they think Greece owes them something. And here more. Yeah, they're probably upset that they're being tear-gassed, but what do you expect? You're bum-rushing a country's borders. He seems upset. Well, yes, man. There's a right and a wrong way to enter a country. And here they are running back to Turkey. Migrants run back towards the Turkish border as Greek police shoot tear gas in an attempt to disperse the crowds today. Oh, he's pretty upset. Here's some with children. Although he's clearly holding that one up as a prop. I believe that guy's a dad because he's carrying a kid like I've carried this kid a lot. That one too. This guy, little sister probably, or someone else's kid, because he's not holding that kid like I would hold my child. Migrants carry. I mean, he could be. Who knows? Migrants pictured carrying their children as they walk on railways towards Maritsa River near Edirne to take a boat to attempt to enter Greece this morning. I say it could be his. It could also not be. I know in our southern border we have people using children to claim they're a family unit and sneak through and exploit our immigration laws. Thanks, Obama. All right, here are more immigrants. Here's some more. And it's basically more of the same. So is it really bad for the EU? And it's kind of bad for these immigrants. And this is why. All right. EU's post-Brexit fight is getting real. Because where is the money coming from? Britain left the EU on January 20th. Good job, Boris. Keep it going. This is their contribution to the budget. 11.88% of the EU's budget comes from Great Britain. That's several billion pounds. So now everyone's like, well, where's all that money going to come from? Because we spend a lot. But why this is super bad for the migrants pouring into Greece? Look down here. All the way down. There's Greece, 1.2% of the EU's budget, which is not that big. Not that big at all. Britain and France have the second and third largest economies in Europe, with Britain having a $2.39 trillion economy. To keep that in mind, America's economy is right around $25 trillion. The UK contributed approximately $8.93 billion to the EU. Alright, so why is that super bad? Here's unemployment for January 2020. Here's the EU as a whole, right? 6.6% across the entirety of Europe. Way down here, you have Greece at 16.5%. Greece has one of the worst economies in all of Europe, and they are getting hammered with tens of thousands of people with no jobs who are going to demand services, who are stretching things to the brink. Oh, and by the way, there's a highly contagious disease floating around that you have no way to screen them for because you don't know who they are. So, on the bright side, we don't have the same issues Greece has. We don't have the same issues the European Union has. And if you vote wisely, we can avoid a lot of the same problems that are being found in the Middle East and in Europe. So be thankful you live in America. If you don't live in America, immigrate naturally. Apparently the President's Chief of Staff says we need legal immigrants, which is cool. Immigrate legally, not illegally. I mean, follow the rules. But until next time.